My name is Lena Hart. I'm 29 years old. And this is how I took revenge on the person who destroyed my life and made sure they watched every second of their downfall. I wasn't always this version of myself, the cold one, the one who thinks 3 steps ahead and never shows her cards. There was a time I laughed easily, trusted deeply, and believed in forever, especially with him, Ryan Calloway. He wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my business partner, my best friend, and I thought one day he'd be the father of my kids. We met in grad school, both chasing a dream bigger than us. He was brilliant in a boardroom, magnetic at networking events. I handled the back end, the code, the strategy. We built a startup from scratch, sleepless nights, cheap ramen, endless pitch decks. I loved him. God, I believed in him. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It came in subtle silences, late night lies, business trips that didn't add up. At first, I blamed myself, thought maybe I was too demanding. Maybe he needed space. Maybe Mallory was just being helpful. But the moment that shattered everything, it was a Thursday afternoon. I'd been out sick with the flu. First time I'd missed a board meeting in 3 years. When I returned, I swiped my badge, walked into the office I designed from scratch, and saw a new announcement scrawled across the glass board in the lobby. Welcome our new CEO, Ryan Calloway. I thought it was a joke. I laughed. One of those awkward, disbelieving laughs that gets caught in your throat. Then I saw the rest of it. My name scrubbed from the founder's plaque. My office emptied. Mallory standing beside him in a tight, smug dress and a tighter smile. It wasn't a mistake. It was a coup. They'd rewritten the company bylaws, filed paperwork behind my back, froze my equity, blocked my email, used a clause I had helped write, a clause designed to protect us, to force me out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I watched, quietly. And when no one was looking, I began to plan. Because while they took everything above the surface, my title, my salary, my so-called friends, they underestimated what was buried beneath. They didn't know I'd been documenting things, quietly building a ledger of the lies, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts. They didn't realize I still had access to servers they'd long forgotten existed. They underestimated the girl they left in the ashes. So I smiled back. I congratulated them. I walked out with my head high and a plan already unfolding in my mind. You see, some people break when they're betrayed. Me, I build. And now I'm going to tear their world down, piece by piece, and make sure they see it happen every single second. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, one of 3 daughters raised by a single mom who worked double shifts just to get us through school. We didn't have much: second-hand clothes, overdue bills, cereal for dinner sometimes. But we had each other, and we had dreams. Mine was big. I wanted to start a tech company that helped women track financial abuse in relationships. Hidden bank accounts, coercive control, secret debts. Because I saw what that kind of powerlessness did to my mom. I watched her hand over every paycheck to my dad before he finally left. Watched her beg utility companies for extensions while he drove around in a new car. Watched her rebuild her life from scratch with 3 kids and nothing but a high school diploma. So yeah, I swore early on that no man would ever control me with money or anything else. By 18, I was coding at night and waitressing during the day. I graduated Rutgers early, scraped my way into MIT's entrepreneurship bootcamp, then lived off protein bars and free coffee while pitching the earliest version of what would become Vest Hair. The idea was simple. Give women the data, the receipts, the red flags, and you give them the power. That's where Ryan came in. I met him at a startup conference in Boston when I was 24. He had that annoying kind of confidence that made people turn toward him in a room, even when he wasn't saying anything all that smart. But he sounded smart. Slick suit, charming grin, pitch ready at all times. He offered to grab a drink. I said yes. The conversation lasted 5 hours. He got it, or at least he said he did. He respected what I was building, said he wanted to help. At first, we kept things separate, business and personal. But he started giving me advice, making introductions, teaching me how to navigate the old boys club of VC culture. Male investors who wouldn't look me in the eye would happily hand him their business cards, and I let him step in, invited him in. A year later, he was officially on the team and in my bed. Stupid, I know, but we were making progress. We got our first big round of funding, brought on advisors, upgraded our office from a co-working closet to an actual floor downtown. Users were signing up. Press was starting to notice. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had bled for, was finally happening. And I wasn't alone. I had Mallory. Mallory and I met freshman year at Rutgers. She was all glasses and sarcasm, always reading 3 books at once. We bonded in an econ class, launched a feminist blog together, then stayed up late in our dorm mapping out our someday company. When I started Vest here, she was my first call. She was always the quieter one, more cautious, but solid, steady, my ride or die. For a while it worked, the 3 of us. We launched, we scaled. By year 3 we were profitable, a word that's practically mythical in tech. I started trusting again. Maybe I could finally breathe. Maybe I could finally build something solid, something safe, until it started to crack. It was subtle at first. A few skip meetings, investor calls I wasn't looped into, password suddenly changed. Ryan brushed it off as tightening security. Mallory started deferring to him more in team calls, then stopped texting me back after hours. I thought it was stress, burnout, normal startup friction. Then came the missed email threads. Then the legal docs I'd never seen before. Then the board vote I hadn't even known was happening. I confronted Ryan once, late one night, shaking, holding my phone like it could anchor me. I asked why I'd been left off the quarterly planning call, why our equity cap table had suddenly changed. He kissed my forehead like he was soothing a child and said, "You're just stressed, babe. You're reading into things." That phrase, "you're just stressed," it hit me like a slap, because that's exactly the kind of gaslighting our app was designed to catch. I had written the warning scripts myself, the checklist of red flags, the subtle patterns that make a woman question her own instincts. I wasn't paranoid. I was being squeezed out of my own creation. The next few weeks were a blur of late nights and sick realizations. Mallory was always conveniently unavailable. Legal began ghosting me. And Ryan kept smiling like he was already writing the Forbes profile about his genius CEO rebrand. Then came that Thursday, the glass board, the press release, the smug congratulations. Everything I had spent 5 years building wiped in a single afternoon. They didn't just steal my company. They hijacked my mission, my voice, my story. And that's when I realized if I didn't fight back, I wasn't just losing a startup, I was letting them erase me. So I got up, I walked out of that office, and I started to build something new. Not another app, not another dream. This time, I was building a reckoning, The final blow was public. They knew exactly what they were doing. The precision of it, the performance. They waited until the perfect moment to twist the knife. That same Thursday, after the lobby glassboard ambush, came the real spectacle, the boardroom. I'd just flown in that morning from DC, where I'd been invited to speak on a women's leadership panel. It was a huge deal, my first national event. I talked about financial autonomy, about female founders, about the systems designed to erase us and how we rise anyway. My name had been featured in Forbes that week, under 30 women to watch in tech. I should have been flying high. Exhausted, yes, but proud. I still had the press badge hanging around my neck when the elevator doors opened. And there it was, my crucifixion in real time. Mallory stood at the head of the boardroom table, my seat, her hand resting on a sleek silver laptop. Ryan was beside her, whispering something in her ear that made her smirk. The rest of the board, 6 men in tailored suits, 2 women I'd mentored personally, clapped, light, polite claps, the kind you give at a wedding toast. My name wasn't on the agenda. The digital signage outside the room had already updated. Quarterly board session, presented by CEO Mallory Price and COO Ryan Calloway. My stomach flipped. I reached for my badge to swipe in. The little green light that always welcomed me. Red. Access denied. I tried again. Same result. A junior operations manager standing by the coffee cart glanced at me and quickly looked away. I stepped inside anyway. No one stopped me, but every head turned. There was a silence so sharp it could have drawn blood. Ryan's smirk grew wider when he saw me. "Lena," he said, arms spread like he was greeting an old friend. "I told you we needed a new direction. It's not personal." That's what people always say before they make it entirely personal. He knew what this company meant to me. He knew the sacrifices I made, the nights I slept in the office, the health scares I ignored, the friends I lost touch with. And still, he looked me in the eye and told me it wasn't personal. It was everything personal. I took a slow breath and looked at Mallory. She didn't even blink. Later, I'd find out how they pulled it off. The clause in our shareholder agreement, the one that allowed a vote to redistribute equity in the event of long-term instability or founder misalignment. The same clause I wrote, and Ryan told me not to waste money getting reviewed by a lawyer. They'd quietly called for a vote while I was in DC. They diluted my shares from 47% to 6%. Then they held an emergency meeting and elected Mallory as interim CEO. Ryan got his shiny new COO title and full financial control. Legal was already instructed to scrub my credentials from everything, the website, the press kits, even our internal Slack channels. But they didn't stop there. They drained the joint account Ryan and I had opened for personal expenses, $74,000 gone overnight. Not technically illegal, but deliberately cruel. Everything I had built, every dream, dollar, decision was gone in 36 hours. I didn't cry, not in front of them. I smiled. I looked Mallory straight in the eye, then Ryan, and I said, "Good luck running my company." Then I turned and walked out. The boardroom door clicked shut behind me like the seal of a tomb. That night, I slept on my sister Ava's couch. She handed me a glass of wine, her face unreadable but her arms open. I had $400 in my checking account. No savings, no fallback plan, no apartment. My lease was under Ryan's name. My laptop, the one with 5 years of my life on it, was company property. All I had was my phone, a duffel bag, and a heart full of rage. That's when I promised myself they wouldn't win. I wouldn't let my story end with betrayal. Because if they thought I was finished, if they thought I'd disappear into some quiet corner of the world and cry myself into irrelevance, they had forgotten who I was. They had forgotten why I built this company in the first place. Power doesn't come from titles or bank accounts. It comes from knowing exactly what someone is afraid to lose and being willing to take it from them. So I stayed up that night, staring at the ceiling, planning the first move in a long game. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The months that followed broke me down and rebuilt me. First came the silence, the kind that roars in your ears when everything you thought you were is suddenly gone. I'd wake up on my sister's couch at noon, still in yesterday's clothes, the imprint of my laptop keys on my face. I'd scroll through headlines that featured my company, glowing press releases about Westhurst's bold pivot and visionary leadership. They were calling it a new era. My name was nowhere. The branding changed. Softer tones, corporate gloss. My old profile photo disappeared from the Our Founders page. By month 2, the only trace of me left on the site was in a buried blog post from 2019. No author name, no bio. It was like I'd never existed. But I didn't sit still. I let myself grieve, yes. I allowed the bitterness to rot in my gut until I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. But eventually, I got up. I went back to what I knew, the one language no one could take from me: code. I started freelancing anonymously, mostly back-end work for fintech startups that didn't ask too many questions. I built a new laptop from parts. I encrypted everything. My Venmo profile was under a fake name. Heart and code, no photo, just a black square. I worked 12-hour days and saved every cent. I studied corporate law at night, reading PDFs, annotated case files, founder horror stories, and eventually I found her, Valeria Chin, a lawyer who specialized in corporate fraud, whistleblower protection, and partnership disputes. Female, sharp as a blade, and just as furious about what had happened to me as I was. She reviewed my files in silence, then looked me in the eye and said, "You're sitting on a powder keg, but it's not ready to blow. Not yet." So I waited. But while I waited, I dug deep. I accessed old backups, email caches, abandoned Slack channels, the ones they thought were wiped when they migrated to their shiny new enterprise system. I read every message, every buried conflict, every expense report Ryan tried to hide under vague labels like executive travel and client development. I knew what those were. I was there when he booked half of them. And then I found it. A whistleblower report, filed through our old employee feedback tool, documenting sexual harassment by a key investor, one of our earliest funders. The report had been flagged for HR. The date was 1 week before our Series B closed, but the report never went anywhere. Instead, Ryan and Mallory buried it. They rewrote the narrative, quietly terminated the employee with a severance NDA, and restructured our cap table to give that investor a stronger seat on the board. I had the metadata. I had screenshots. I had an archived copy of the original complaint. More than that, I had people, former employees who still trusted me. Some of them reached out, confused by what they were seeing in the press, angry at how quickly my name vanished. One of them, a junior engineer named Neha, still had the internal Slack thread, and she sent it to me. It was all there, but it wasn't enough to go legal. Not yet. Lawsuits are expensive, public, slow. I wanted something faster, sharper. I didn't just want them punished, I wanted them exposed. So I rebranded myself, not as Lena Hart, disgraced founder, but as Heart and Code, a quiet, relentless developer behind a new platform, one that tackled what Westher was supposed to. A stripped down, secure tool that let women audit their financial lives, flag abuse patterns, and get connected to legal aid. No press releases, no seed round, just clean design, clean code, and clean intent. Within 6 months, the site was gaining traction. Then I made my move. I still knew how the press worked. I'd mentored a young journalist back in my founder days, back when I believed in media as a force for good. Her name was Reena Kapoor. She wrote for The Verge now. I sent her a packet, anonymously, detailing everything: the harassment cover up, the altered financials, the silenced voices, along with evidence. She verified the sources, ran it up to her editor. Then the story dropped. The dirty secrets behind Westher's glittering rebrand. It went viral in under 12 hours. Investors began pulling out. One major firm issued a statement distancing itself from the company. Another launched an internal audit. Hashtags started trending. Women shared their own stories. Former employees chimed in anonymously. And the best part? Ryan panicked. He posted a shaky video from his home office, blaming Mallory for internal mismanagement. He talked about being blindsided, about how he trusted the wrong people. His tie was crooked, his face puffy. The comments section tore him apart. Mallory struck back a day later with an anonymous leak of her own, screenshots of Ryan's infidelity. Not just with one intern, but three, all during key fundraising windows. The screenshots showed calendar invites, hotel receipts, Slack flirtations in the middle of investor calls. The house of cards was falling, fast. Their trust was imploding, publicly. But I wasn't done yet. I knew them. I knew how they operated. The egos, the insecurities. I knew Ryan couldn't stand being irrelevant. And I knew Mallory hated looking like a fool. So I waited, just a little longer. Then I leaked my second story, through a different channel. A quiet expose, this time focused on financial discrepancies in Westher's last quarterly report. Small enough to avoid triggering legal liability on my end, but sharp enough to make their remaining board members sweat. It worked. The story sparked a second round of press inquiries, this time from Bloomberg. By the end of the week, 2 more board members resigned. Westher's valuation tanked. Their bold pivot? Frozen. Their new partnerships? Terminated. And me? I was just getting started. Because I wasn't only destroying their company, I was reclaiming my own story. Piece by piece, bite by bite. Every lie they built their empire on. I was pulling it down, brick by brick. And when the last one falls, I'll be there, watching, just like they watched me. The final move had to be public. Silent sabotage had its place. The private dismantling, the anonymous leaks, the quiet victories. But for this to end the way it needed to, for it to land like a blade between the ribs, everyone had to see. So I bought a front row ticket to Tech Forward, the biggest startup summit on the East Coast. And ironically, the same event where, 3 years ago, I stood on stage beside Ryan to accept an Innovation in Impact award. Back when I still believed in us. This year, Westher was scheduled to unveil a new partnership with a major banking app, complete with press coverage, live demos, and, of course, a keynote by Ryan Calloway himself. I didn't show up as Lena Hart. I showed up as the founder of Heart and Code, the name now known in industry circles for its fiercely ethical design and a viral New York Times profile titled The Tech Phoenix Who Quietly Watched and Rose. I wore jeans, sneakers, and a dark hoodie pulled low. The badge said L Hart, Independent Developer. The hoodie said nothing at all. But the room knew. Ryan definitely knew. He was already on stage when I arrived, pacing behind the podium, sipping from a branded water bottle like he was calming himself before a TED talk. He looked good, in that desperate, over-prepared kind of way. Trim beard, navy suit, a forced smile that hadn't reached his eyes in months. Mallory stood to the side near the AV team, arms crossed, nerves visible even from where I sat. They were trying to hold it together, but they had no idea what was about to happen. You see, weeks earlier, I'd worked with a quiet ally, a former Vest her engineer who still owed me a favor, to plant a backdoor script inside the summit's AV system. A simple live stream override triggered by one command, timed precisely to interrupt Ryan's keynote intro. It would activate right as his sizzle reel began. The polished montage of press quotes, fake smiles, and stock footage of empowered women using their app. What played instead? The truth. The projector screen flickered once, then the first clip rolled. Ryan in the old boardroom, laughing with two male investors. I mean, let's be real. Half these users don't even read the terms. They just want a pink logo and some "you go girl" vibes. Laughter. Another clip, Mallory rolling her eyes during an internal compliance meeting. If we pause every time someone complains, we'll never close a round. It's not harassment, it's startup culture. Then, the worst one, Ryan. Again, voice low, smug. Lena's emotional. Brilliant, yeah, but she doesn't get the long game. We cut her out now. While her equity's still thin, she won't recover. The room was silent. Not the quiet of politeness, the quiet of impact, of people watching someone's entire legacy crack open in front of them. Ryan froze. Mallory was already moving, frantically gesturing at the AV booth, her voice rising. Too late. I stood, slowly, deliberately, and when the room turned to look, I pulled back my hoodie, stepped up to the center aisle, and raised the mic clipped to my badge. "Hi, Ryan," I said, voice calm, clear. "Thanks for keeping my seat warm." The sound system carried my words like a knife through still water. For a second, he looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he did. His eyes widened, not with shock, but with pure, helpless fear, because for the first time, he was the one caught off guard. Security began to move, and then paused. Someone in the audience stood and started clapping. Another followed, then another. The applause spread like wildfire. Not polite, not hesitant, righteous. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. That night, everything collapsed. The SEC announced an investigation into fraudulent investor documents and whistleblower suppression. The startup accelerator that anchored their last round pulled funding immediately. Tech Forward issued a formal apology and scrubbed Ryan's keynote from their site. Ryan's career? Dead. Not with a bang, but with the slow, sick rot of public disgrace. He became unhireable overnight. The man who once lectured me on emotional resilience was now hiding behind PR statements and locked social media accounts. Mallory tried to pivot. She gave a damage control interview 2 days later. All soft lighting, and we made mistakes. But the public didn't buy it. Women saw through it. And the woman they stepped on, they remembered. Within a month, West Hor was out of funding. Within two, it was gone. And me, I didn't celebrate. I didn't dance in the ashes. That's not who I am anymore. But I did sit down the next morning, hoodie back on, coffee in hand, and open my laptop. I logged into the admin dashboard of Heart and Code. User signups had tripled overnight, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. And then I rebuilt. It didn't all happen overnight. Rebuilding never does. The headlines eventually faded, as they always do. Ryan's name became shorthand for startup scandal in MBA ethics courses. Mallory tried to sue me for defamation. She lost. The court ruled that the footage was authentic, the whistleblower claims were protected, and the media had every right to publish what I gave them. She disappeared after that, deleted her LinkedIn. Last I heard, she was consulting in Berlin under a different name. Ryan tried to launch a podcast. It flopped. I didn't chase closure with either of them. I didn't need it. Instead, I focused on what mattered, getting my name back. With Valeria's help, I petitioned the board and the state business registrar to reinstate my legal status as Westhair's co-founder. There were delays, pushback. But eventually, the paperwork came through. Just a quiet email in my inbox with a PDF attachment. I opened it in the same coffee shop where I used to plan my pitches with Mallory. There it was. Lena Hart, co-founder. I didn't print it. I didn't frame it. I just smiled. I didn't want the company back. I'd outgrown it. Outgrown the need to prove anything to anyone. What I wanted was my story back. And I got it. Heart and Code is thriving now. We're all women-led, transparent, profitable, real. We launched a new feature that helps survivors of financial abuse connect with attorneys and certified advocates in their area. We have over 250,000 users, most of them referred through word of mouth. We don't spend a dime on ads. Our team is scrappy, brilliant, and fiercely ethical. We interview every advisor. We rotate leadership positions to prevent ego stacking. We pay maternity leave. We build slow on purpose. Every now and then, I still get invited to panels, the kind that used to overlook me unless I came with a man beside me. Now they want to hear about resilience, reinvention, leadership after betrayal. But when people ask me about my journey, I don't talk about the backstabbing. I don't talk about Ryan or Mallory by name. I talk about strategy. I talk about listening when people think you're broken. I talk about watching quietly when they think they've won, and then conquering louder than they ever imagined. Because survival isn't just about enduring. It's about learning who you are without the titles, the applause, the perfect pitch deck. And for me, it turns out I'm not just a founder, or a coder, or even a survivor. I'm a tactician, a builder, a goddamn storm in a hoodie. And this time, I'm not rising from the ashes. I'm designing the fire. Some people say revenge is ugly, that it hardens you, turns you into the very thing you were fighting. Maybe they're right, but I think revenge doesn't change you. It reveals you. I used to think strength looked like always being in control, always smiling, always saying the right thing in boardrooms built for men. Now I know better. Strength is trusting and getting betrayed, and still choosing to build again. It's being underestimated, overlooked, shut out, and still refusing to disappear. I learned I wasn't weak for trusting. I was strong for surviving. I wasn't naive. They were just loud and entitled and so used to winning they didn't know how to brace for a storm. And me, I was watching quietly until I didn't have to watch anymore, until it was my turn to speak, to move, to take everything they thought I'd lost and turn it into something sharper, stronger, mine. People love to tell stories about broken women, about victims and villains, but they never see the woman in the middle of it all, rebuilding in silence, collecting the receipts, turning pain into strategy, the one they dismissed with a smirk, a contract, a deactivated badge, the one who stayed soft in private, but struck hard in public, because the woman they underestimated, she's the one they'll never outrun.